You're listening to Houston Weekend Magazine. My name is Mystic Matthews, and joining me today on the show are very special guests from the Lupus Foundation of America. The CEO of the Lupus Foundation is Rebecca Kramer, Dr. Sam Pegram, a rheumatologist and a principal investigator of clinical trials, and a lupus patient, Linda Willies. How are you three doing today?
Great.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Good. I'm so glad that all of you could be here. And Rebecca, welcome back to the show. We've had you on a couple times, and we always love to have you back with us. And today we're talking about clinical trials and how that has been such a great help for lupus, the foundation, and the patients that you guys serve here in the Texas Gulf Coast area. Give us a little bit of background, Rebecca, on what you do for the Lupus Foundation and what the Lupus Foundation of America does for our area.
The Lupus Foundation of America is a leading nonprofit source for support for the lupus patient and the lupus community. We provide support services, educational programs, and a vast variety of resources to the lupus community.
And how long have you been in our area, in the Texas Gulf Coast area?
The chapter was formed in 1984, and I have actually been with the chapter for almost 6 years.
As CEO?
Yes.
Okay, great. And what does that mean as CEO? What is it that you do on a daily basis?
Our chapter is a very tightly run chapter, so there's just a few of us in the office, so we wear a lot of different hats. We work as a team to create programs, put on fundraising events, and we pretty much support the lupus patient and lupus community in any way that we can. We like partnering with different organizations and different clinics to provide services.
And when people have lupus, you are a chapter or an organization that people can turn to?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. What kind of information is available for people who have lupus in our area?
There's a lot of basic information for the lupus patient, just on lupus in general. We have a physician referral list for patients that are newly diagnosed and have been referred to a rheumatologist. And recently there's been a lot of new developments with new drugs coming about to treat lupus. We're very involved in clinical trials and letting the community know about clinical trials that are going on. It's a great service to lupus patients who might be underinsured or uninsured. It gives them top-notch medical care while they're participating in a clinical trial.
Okay, and clinical trials are very important because a lot of things that we do as far as medicine goes involves clinical trials so that we can have more information about them. And that's why Dr. Pegram is here to talk to us. As a rheumatologist and an investigator of clinical trials, tell us about that and tell us how that's helped the lupus community.
Very important question, because without clinical trials, it would be almost impossible to bring new modes of therapy to patients who have the disease. Despite the fact that lupus is a very far-reaching and frequent illness, the number of products that are actually proven to be efficacious in this illness are quite limited. And without clinical trials, we could rarely bring new therapies to market.
And how important are clinical trials to the actual treatment of lupus patients?
Essential. Without clinical trials, a couple of things would not happen. One, we could not determine therapy, whether things work in the population with the disease. And secondly, we could not determine safety of the drugs that come to market. And so clinical trials are essential for patients to feel confident that the medicines that they're going to use are actually going to be beneficial in their particular disease process.
Okay, when we think of clinical trial, though, that's technically using drugs on patients, right?
That's right. In order for us to determine whether a drug is going to be efficacious, we have to use it in the patients who have the illness. This sometimes is frightening to patients because they have misconceptions about clinical trials, that we're sort of given these nebulous medicines that we don't really know much about. But there are various stages of clinical trials, and generally patients are involved in what we call stage 2 or stage 3 trials, where the drugs have already gone initial evaluation to prove that they are beneficial. Now we want to know the specific doses that are most beneficial, and most importantly, we want to determine safety with those particular doses. And in order, again, for patients to feel confident, we have to use them in human subjects.
When you have patients who are willing to participate, are most of them willing because they know that it's going to help them? I mean, because you would think it would be scary to say, well, I don't really know about this one.
Well, that's one of the reasons where I'm delighted that you've had us on, because we want to take some of that fear out of the process of clinical trials. Basically, what clinical trials, they serve a number of purposes. One is that they allow patients to have access to some of the leading modes of therapy, in fact, newer modes of therapy, particularly in patients who have failed to respond to conventional modes previously. Secondly, it allows the lupus community in general now to have access to therapies that have not have before not been available to them. Thirdly, it also allows patients to, as mentioned by Rebecca, to have access to actually excellent modes of therapy, because clinical trials are monitored by various agencies, including the U.S. government. It makes sure that physicians have to attend to these patients in a very diligent manner. They have to make sure that there's an excellent quality of care. All of these things are scrutinized by their peers and various other governmental agencies, and so patients actually get a higher level of care than they might otherwise. And most importantly, we have a disease process that unfortunately can be quite detrimental in patients, and without the use of clinical trials, we cannot bring new products to market. Clinical trials have now allowed us to bring the first drug in 50 years that has been dedicated to the treatment of lupus now to market. It has also spawned a number of drugs that are quite similar that are now on the way to market. Without clinical trials, these things would not be available to patients whatsoever.
So that was one of my questions I was going to ask was, aren't there treatments already available for lupus patients? Because lupus is such a hard disease to treat.
Unfortunately, number one, yes, there are a number of modes of therapy that are out there and are quite beneficial, but unfortunately, most of those drugs actually came to market for other disease processes. Based on the mechanism of the drug, we sort of began to use them in the treatment of lupus as we became more familiar with the mechanism of that disease. But again, very few drugs actually came on the market specifically for the treatment of lupus. Here recently, over the past 18 months, the first drug again in 40 years specifically manufactured, studied, and now brought to market for the treatment of lupus, which is called Benlysta, hit the market strictly because of its efficacy proven in clinical trials. Without that, this drug wouldn't be before us now. Also with that, with clinical trials, new drugs now that are similar and also have a similar mechanism of action are now poised to come on the market. So clinical trials will have this ripple effect by bringing more and more products now for the treatment of this illness.
Right, and it opens up new avenues for things that you might not have known about beforehand.
Absolutely. We can't advance unless we have the opportunity to study, and clinical trials allow us that opportunity.
Okay, and Linda Willies is here today. She's a patient who has been involved in clinical trials for treating lupus. Give us your story and how this has helped you thus far in your fight with lupus.
I was diagnosed with lupus about 19 years ago. I've seen some of the pretty nasty effects that the disease has to offer. I have been in the trial for the last 7 years. I am into my 8th year for the study trial of Benlysta. It has really helped my symptoms a great deal. I was on higher dosages of prednisone and other drugs that help to calm the system and to bring relief to some of the terrible side effects of lupus. But now I feel much better. I am on a very low dose of prednisone now, and a lot of the side effects that I struggled with have somewhat subsided, and it has been a great asset to my life. Now, clinical trials, they are scary, and in the beginning I did have a lot of questions about clinical trials, but it's just a personal decision. Someone has to do it. Someone has to try to get relief for others. So I was willing to do it, and I'm happy that I did.
Was it something that you took a long time to decide, or, was it a fairly easy decision because, without it, where else would you have gone kind of thing?
It was some thought, but I needed something else. I needed to try something else.
19 years is a long time to have been diagnosed and be living with this disease. Are you in a network with other patients where you have a support system? And obviously through the foundation you do.
Yes.
So is that something that's also helped you as far as, living with this?
Yes, I facilitate a lupus support group in the Kingwood area, and I've done that for about 9 years. So, I've done a lot of reading on it. I've spoken to a lot of different people with the disease, and we just help each other. Just
being a part of this clinical trial, is that something else that you have, found another kind of support group in as well?
Well, with clinical trials, it's really, I have talked to other lupus patients and, trying to get people to try it, but that's the scary part. A lot of people are really reluctant in trying something foreign, unknown. They have seen the results, like some of the patients that are in my support group, they've seen the change, the way I feel, the way I look, and now they're like, has that drug done that? I was like, I think so.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot better.
You have led other people to want to try it. I mean, and I would think that would be a perfect spokesperson for helping this clinical trial push.
Absolutely, and I think Linda mentioned a very important factor about this fear portion of enrolling in a clinical trial. It's important for potential patients to understand that before anyone is placed in a clinical trial, there is an informed consent process that goes on with each and every patient before they're enrolled. This includes a conversation, a confidential conversation with the principal investigator as well as the research coordinator that gives the risk, the benefits, and also alternative modes of therapy to the patient before they start, so that the patient understands going in that, in fact, if the product proves to be either non-efficacious or if the product proves to be to cause a side effect in that patient, that they will be given alternative modes of treatment, that they will have their doctor and the entire staff available to them, and that, again, that they have complete and total access to standards of care that are currently being used within the community. So the patients need to feel confident that because they're enrolled in a clinical trial, and let's say the process doesn't go as well as they would like, they can disenroll themselves at any point in time, and they can then have access to the standards of care that are available in the community. So there's great pains that are taken to ensure that these patients, again, have access to all modes of therapy, including the new product that they're involved in the trial.
Right now, are we actively looking for new people to participate in the clinical trials?
Always. In fact, the only way, again, we can bring new products to market is that we have access to patients with the disease. And so there are a number of clinical trials that are ongoing around the country involving various aspects of lupus, and that in patients, in order to make themselves available to these trials, there's information that will be given by Rebecca in regards to how they avail themselves to the trials. A number of those clinical trials are ongoing here in our own city. And so there's easy access to these. There's a plethora of data that's available so patients can find where these trials are in their community, and we would urge them to take a look.
Okay, Rebecca, tell us a little bit about how people can find out more information and get involved, and what it is that the foundation itself has coming up.
The Lupus Foundation of America has a Center for Clinical Trials education portion to the website, and you can find that by logging on to www.lupus.org/clinical trials. It's a comprehensive resources for people with lupus to find information about all the clinical trials going on in their area. You can also go to clinicaltrials.gov and do a search under lupus and the city that you live in, and it'll narrow down all the results. That'll tell you exactly what's going on in your city. Our organization is very knowledgeable about clinical trials going on, so you can always give us a call at 713-529-0126 and ask for more information. What makes it a lot easier is if you become a member. We have free memberships that give you access to all the information that's going on within our chapter.
And what about any upcoming events that you have as far as the Texas Gulf Coast chapter?
We have 2 signature events per calendar year, and coming up soon on November 12th is the annual gala. It's our 10th anniversary gala, The Magic of Morocco. It'll be held November 12th at the Bell Tower on 34th, located at 901 West 34th Street. And so it's going to be a really great event. It's a black tie event. You can purchase tickets or find out more information on our website at www.lupustexas.org.
And when is your other event that you normally have during the year?
And we also have our walkathon and our 5K run. That is the first Sunday in May every year at the Downtown Aquarium.
Okay, right. And that's what we had you on last time before to talk about. These events are great for people to come out to find out more information, but as you said, they can always go online if they're interested in finding out more about lupus and also the clinical trials itself. And give us the website one more time if people are interested in the clinical trials.
Our chapter website is www.lupustexas.org.
Okay, wonderful. Anything else that we wanted to talk about today that we didn't get a chance to mention yet?
Well, I think one thing we should mention is when they come to these events, they can have some fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
Events are always fun, especially black tie events. And it's going to be, downtown at the Bell Tower. I haven't heard of that. What is that?
It's like a Mediterranean style. It's a venue. They have weddings, they have galas, they have all different kinds of stuff. And we're also always looking for volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, you can log on to our website for information about that or give us a call at 713-529-0126.
Okay. Well, thank you so much to Rebecca Kramer from from the Lupus Foundation of America, Texas Gulf Coast Chapter, to Linda Willies, a patient, and Dr. Sam Pegram, a rheumatologist and principal investigator of clinical trials. We thank you so much for joining us on Houston Weekend Magazine.